However, for most of my life, I've enjoyed building systems. I've enjoyed tinkering, writing code, and this is exactly why I was drawn to the IT industry. And I served many roles, but the most impact that I had were on quality assurance, specifically QA automation, and project management. And yeah, I do understand and I do hear the skepticism because project management is not the fanciest job, at least for engineers, but it does have its moments. Because I did enjoy creating the team I've been leading, and I did enjoy seeing the people in the team grow. And it would have been awesome if was the primary role of a project manager. But in reality, the day-to-day work of a project manager is less in building things, building teams or processes, and more of keeping things on track and dealing with client expectations, which is exactly why I burnt out, because I was lacking this spark of creating things. I did recover. It did take quite a bit of time, but at least I had this opportunity and I used it to consider my next moves. Reflecting on the past and reflecting on the things that I did not enjoy in my roles in project management and in testing, I realized that the most optimal way for me to move forward is, again, going back to a technical role, but as a software engineer, with a future goal of becoming an architect eventually in the long future. But I need to be also clear about what are my expectations. Obviously, it's not going to be a straightforward path. There are factors that are changing things that are making this transition a bit more complicated. First of all, obviously, the AI revolution. It does change our industry quite a bit. But also, I need to acknowledge that I did take quite a long break from doing professional technical work, which is exactly why I am creating this channel with two specific goals in mind. One is to document my journey, to engage the larger community, and maybe receive some practical feedback on my path. Two, to showcase my portfolio of projects. And I will be honest, I will not be doing cookie cutter portfolio projects because there's just way too many calendars, way too many to-do apps, way too many alarm clocks. There is just way too many cookie cutter stuff. And AI can do that pretty much as good as anybody. Instead, I want to focus on things that I personally would find useful and would potentially bring value to everybody else who is interested. So this is exactly the goal. Now, how I will be organizing each videos. First, I will be going through the justification, through the scope of a project, what is in the scope for the current version and what is not, and also going through the architectural decisions and trade-offs that I made. After that, I will be going through the code, doing a walkthrough of showing just how things work in general without going too much into detail. And also, the next thing is showing how things work and showing the result. Without any further ado, I think it is time to talk about my first project that I want to share. And I'll start by providing first the context. So, a couple of weeks ago, I learned that apparently several AI organizations are using public repositories from GitHub to train their models. And personally, I did not find it very acceptable So for some personal projects, I decided to deploy a local Gitea version control system. But then I thought to myself, so as any experienced engineer knows, the best way to grow is to have your code reviewed. And I have nobody to review my code, especially if this code is deployed locally only. And I realized that I can do this via an AI, but not a cloud deployed AI, rather something local, so that it is not used to train any model and not gonna be used in any way that I don't intend. So the idea is this. Let's assume that you did some work. You wrote your code, it works locally, and you decided to create a pull request. And in my case, I'm using Gitea, so this is exactly why this is done to Gitea. And under the hood, a pull request is nothing else than the difference between what was implemented in the past and what is the change. So it's called difference, or diff for short. Then what I added a webhook to Gitea that triggers a call from my local AI code reviewer into Gitea itself, and this code reviewer pulls the diff for this pull request into its memory, and then uses this diff to build a prompt to a large language model deployed in LM Studio. And then this prompt is being processed, and the received response is used by the code reviewer to paste the general comment to Gitea for that specific pull request. Now that the idea is clear, I think it is time to set up the system. And to be completely honest, it is quite straightforward. As everything is Dockerized, the easiest way to do this is by starting with executing the docker compose up command. And for the first execution, I will be using just that. And as you can see, it already created a database successfully, and everything is already started, including the local AI PR reviewer, which is quite fast. It took less than a second. Now let's go to the first setup. How this is configured by default, the Gitea instance is available from the browser at the address localhost at port 3000. And you just go there, and during the first execution, you will be greeted by the Gitea first setup screen. And here, in the initial configuration, you can set up the database, etc. The good thing is I already have all the necessary details pre-configured, and for local use, this is quite fine. However, for a server, I would still recommend you to change the username and password to keep things more secure. And there's that. We can review everything, but given that it's all fine, already tested this, we can go with install Gitea. After a moment, you will be prompted to create the first user for this version control system. Given that this is not connected to anything, the email address can be anything, and the username can be anything. And the only thing that you are required is just to use a strong enough password, which is nothing crazy, just simple letters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, and special characters. So this is how I'm doing it. Let me introduce the password. And voila, we have access to Gitea. It is configured for use. However, right now, at this current state, it is configured only for use as a version control system and nothing else. You cannot use it for code review yet. To use it for code review, you need to do two things. Now let's go back to the GitHub repository very quickly, so that I show the things that you need to do before we actually do that. So if you go here and go to the export required secrets, you see that we need to export a Gitea token and Gitea webhook secrets. Why is that? Well, the system is configured in such a way and developed in such a way that we are not using hard-coded configs. We are using system environment variables, so that it is pretty much system dependent and not you would not be breaking anything by accident, because changing the system variables is a bit harder than changing the config in the repository. So where do you get the Gitea token? Anybody who knows how to work with GitHub, GitLab, or whatever knows that this can be acquired from the version control system itself. And as for the webhook token, we are actually going to provide it ourselves. It's not going to be provided by Gitea, it's going to be provided by us. So the Gitea token will be used to review the PR, and the webhook secret will be used to validate that this PR is actually valid and that the PR webhook was created by Gitea and not by a malicious actor. So how do we do this? On different operating systems, it's a bit different. You see here that you execute export git token and etc. And this is done on Linux, and on Linux and on Mac, it lives during a session of the terminal. So if you execute a new session, if you start a new session, this disappears. This can be done quite simply on Windows by accessing the environment variables. On Mac, you would do it a bit different. You need to open your terminal, and like any self-respecting software engineer, you use Vim. Just kidding. Feel free to use anything that you prefer. So you need to open the zshrc file that stores the environment variables for each terminal session. So the thing that we need to have is this export Gitea token and the token, and export Gitea webhook secret. And this is something that we are probably going to provide. So where do we get the Gitea token? As I said, this is configured inside the Gitea version control. And to do that, to get that, you need to go to your user settings, applications. You create a token name for ease of use. And specifically for the code reviewer, we need to have an ability to read the repository and read and write the issues, because under Gitea, comments are considered issues. So by giving read and write permissions, we have the ability to leave comments. However, given that I also will be reusing the same account for pushing the code, I will also provide write privileges for this token. However, I would personally recommend you to have several tokens, one for pushing the code and one for reviewing it. So we generate the token, we copy it, and we need to paste it in here. We need to replace the existing token or create a new one. And for the webhook secret, generally speaking, it's fine to have any string here. There is no requirement built in. It will accept anything. However, I did generate a random hexadecimal value, and I'll show you how I did this shortly. On Mac, it's quite simple, just as the same as on most Linux distributions. You go with OpenSSL, rand minus hex 32. Easy peasy, you have a random hexadecimal value. So how are we gonna be using this? Well, first of all, let me open back the file that I've been previously editing. And we need this secret. Now we are going to be going to the webhooks, add a webhook, Gitea webhook, and here we need to paste the secret. Given that it's copied, I'll be pasting it right now, but let's go with the target URL. Now here's something that I personally screwed up several times while configuring it. So I did write down the specific webhook URL, and here it is. Given that it is Dockerized, it is going to be exactly the same every time. This is exactly what we need to have in the target URL. Leave the HTTP method as it is, application JSON as it is, and now let's go to the custom events. Now, given that this is a pull request, we need to add some labels, some specific pull request events. We want this to be triggered only when the pull request is created and when the pull request is synchronized, meaning it is rebased. And that's kind of it. Right now, this is the only two events, technically 3 events that are going to be supported just for now. And we add the webhook. We don't save the username and password here because it's no use. And basically, that's it for the configuration. Though I do need to emphasize, given that this thing is edited, and we've added the Gitea token during this terminal session, this Gitea token did not apply to the environment variables yet. So for them to be applied, you need to restart the session. And thus, you also need to restart the Docker component that are executed. And that's kind of it. Next, we'll go and look at how this works under the hood. And after that, we will start by running the system and playing around with a test repository. Okay, now that we are done with the setup, we can go through the code very high level. We'll not be going too much into details on how things work. We will be doing only a high level walkthrough because doing a full code review would be kind of wasteful for this format. If you are interested in the code itself, it is linked in the description below, and feel free to review it. I will be looking forward to your suggestions. In any case, what happens during the webhook trigger is that the AI code reviewer receives a post API call on the webhook Gitea endpoint and receives some data in the headers and in the body of the request. This body is used as a reference, and the header information contains multiple fields, but primarily we are interested in the signature. If you recall, during the setup, we have configured the Gitea webhook secret key. And this secret is used to sign this request. And we are using this in the verify webhook signature just to ensure that it is indeed a request that came from Gitea and not from a malicious source. Next, we are checking that this is indeed a pull request and not anything else. And also we're checking that it is a pull request that is either opened, reopened, or synchronized. Synchronized basically means that the pull request branch is rebased to the target branch. Next, we are extracting the pull request reference data because again, this request does not contain the diff itself, just the reference for the trigger source. And finally, almost finally, we are creating the Gitea client and review service. I already hear some people screaming that this should have been in the initiation phase, but this is actually a deliberate trade-off that I did. And here's the thing. If this were designed for multiple people, this would have been in the initiation phase, and it would have been in memory and allocated there indefinitely until the application is closed. But given the fact that this is implemented purely for my personal use and this method will be triggered several times per day, it will not be that big of a deal. And as a trade-off of this, will actually free up some space in memory. Not that much, but still, I am a huge fan of optimizing things. And after this, pretty much instantly, we are creating a separate thread for processing the this thing in forward. Basically, getting the diff and reviewing the code in a separate thread, and returning returning a response to Gitea that things are working fine, that things are processed. Funnily enough, I have discovered that this needs to be done this way. During the last session where I was recording this demo, and what happened back then is, given that screen recording is also quite a heavy process, the large language model was struggling to process it fast enough. And eventually Gitea just triggered a timeout, and the request did not process further. Now, the LM Studio did return a review, but it was not posted in the comment section of the pull request. So instead, as I said, we are creating a separate thread that is pulling the diff and then builds the prompt. Now let's go very, very high level into the process Gitea review. So first of all, we are extracting the diff text from the pull request using the pull request reference and the token that we set up earlier. And we are using that to review the diff itself. And before we are reviewing the diff, before the large language model receives this diff to be reviewed, we first need to sanitize this. We first need to remove the things that should not be there, like keys or some other secrets. And this is exactly what is happening in the redact secrets method. If you want to review it or adjust it to your needs, feel free to do that. But for general purpose use, it works pretty fine. And after this is done, and we are trimming the diff, removing the empty spaces, and making this as concise as possible. Because let's remember one thing. We need to keep in mind one thing. Token use, even if it is just a local machine, it takes kind of time, a bit of time. Tokens are not some magical things that are coming from nowhere. Each unoptimal thing extends the execution time. So by trimming and sanitizing, we are actually ensuring that things are working as smooth as possible. After we have sanitized the div, and after things are ready to be processed, we are building the review prompt. In simple terms, we are just updating the code review prompt template, just asking the model to review the code, focusing on correctness, bugs, security risks, etc., and providing a template for the review. And at the end of this request, or at the end of the text that we've provided, we are attaching the diff itself. So what happens after this request is sent? After this, the model processes it, generates a response, and then we receive this response, and we then need to send it to Gitea. Again, Gitea has a built-in functionality for that, built-in API, and we are sending the post request to Gitea to add the comment. Right now, we are supporting only general comments. I do plan to expand this a bit in the future, and I do want to add inline comments so that it would be easier to actually address those comments and not jump from comment to code and vice versa. But it is still a useful thing for the MVP, for the early prototype that it is. And yeah, after this is done, the AI code reviewer finishes its work, and it still is running in the background, but as soon as this method is executed, the client and service are being garbage collected, and a lot of memory is freed. And now I think we can go through the demo. So we'll start by starting the LAM Studio server and loading the Gemma 4 E4B model. I did test Qwen 2.5 as well, and it worked perfectly fine. So it's just a matter of preference. As we see, everything is ready. So I'll be clearing out the developer logs from LAM Studio. And given that the application is Dockerized, as well as Gitea and the database, I will start the application by running docker compose up -d. -d executes it in headless mode, so we don't see the whole logs for the whole system. But if you run into any issues, it is still useful. And it still can be useful to see that. So here we go. We are, and we see that the application is started and we have everything executed. Nice. This means we can go to Chrome or any other browser and access the Git repository on localhost at port 3000. And we see that we've accessed the Git repository. We sign in with a previously created user. And I already created a test repository while I was working on this. And right now it is an empty project, basically empty. We have only the git ignore, the MIT license that I'm adding every time by default, and the README for the project, again, generated by default when creating a project. So to create a pull request, just as usual, we go to the pull requests and create a new pull request. Select the source branch, and here is the diff we were talking about previously. This is a diff based on a script that I asked Codex to generate. I specifically asked Codex to generate a bit of code that has some issues, some vulnerabilities, code smells, etc. And we are creating the pull request. Before I create the pull request itself, before the webhook will be triggered, I will mention that this is quite resource heavy. So if you can externalize this to a dedicated machine with a dedicated GPU, that would be the best. But right now I am executing this on my MacBook Air, and as soon as I will start the recording and we will ensure that the call went to LM Studio, I will stop the recording temporarily and we will come back to this after we will be done. I'm pressing the create pull request button, and we see that LM Studio received the prompt. It is processing it and will shortly start generating the response. And now I will stop the recording to free up some resources. Okay, now, so we see that LM Studio shows that the model is ready, which means that the prompt was processed and the response was generated. So I already did check in Chrome that everything worked, and I saw the comment was already generated, and we see the summary of the code review, the findings, the critical issues, major issues, minor ones, and some suggested next steps. You can use this in the future to feed it to an LLM that generated the code and then improve the code quality. And Also, you can use it to improve the code yourself by hand, thus learning to write better code. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you're interested in this kind of content, feel free to stick around. And if you have any kind of feedback, feel free to leave it either in the comment section below or in the GitHub comments. I will be actively reviewing each constructive feedback and incorporating it for my personal growth. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.